Hi everyone, my name's Rebecca and today's class is going to be working with the fascia in our body. So our fascia has a really strong relationship with our nervous system. Fascia is the connective tissue that wraps around and it weaves through everything in our body. So your muscles, your organs, your joints, even your nerves. So it's not just structural, it's sensory. So when we experience stress or trauma, it can show up in the body as tension, bracing, or protective holding patterns in the tissues. So over time, especially if we've spent long periods in that fight, flight, or freeze, the fascia can become really restricted or guarded. So by working slowly with sustained pressure, like holding the ball in one area and breathing, we're giving the nervous system time to feel safe. So this kind of gentle and sustained input can help the tissue rehydrate, soften, and begin to release that stored tension. When the tissue softens, safety signals get sent to the nervous system, signaling that it's safe to release. So people sometimes notice emotional release, anger, sadness, deeper breathing, warmth, a sense of settling when we're doing this. So today we'll move slowly, we'll pause, and we'll notice those sensations and those emotions as they arise. As always, let your body guide you. If there's something that we're doing, please, that doesn't resonate with you, please leave it and kind of listen to your body always. So we are going to be using a ball. You can get one of these fancy balls off Amazon or anywhere. And so this is for the fascia release. And we're also going to be doing some gentle movement in between, maybe a little bit of stretches. And so we might even do some restorative postures. So if you wanted to grab a block, and if you have a bolster. Now, if you don't have a block or a bolster, that's okay. Maybe you're just grabbing a pillow and yeah, so go and grab those things and then I'll meet you back here. All right, welcome back. So we're going to start with the fascia work on the bottoms of our feet. So we're going to remain standing. You're going to take the ball, it might be a tennis ball, and you're going to place it under the foot. And then here, you're just going to start to kind of move around. And you're going to notice areas that might be more tender than others. Now, once you find a tender area, and we don't want a whole lot of pain. So if it's a lot of pain, please avoid that area and maybe just go to the outer edges of that area. And then you're going to hold. And the interesting thing about our fascia is that it's all one, so it's connected. So if we work with the fascia in our feet, we're working with the fascia and helping to release in our whole body. So if one area gets tight, it's really tightening the whole body or certain areas. So working with the feet seems like, that's, if we don't have any foot issues, then why would we do that? But it's a really great spot to start. And you will notice some pressure points. You will notice some tender areas. So once you find a tender area, I want you to hold there, okay? And I just want you to notice what comes up in the body. Maybe your awareness gets taken to that breath. Maybe certain sensations start to move through, either from that area in the foot or anywhere in the body. Noticing if any deep breaths move in, making sure if it feels comfortable to deepen your breath, maybe you're doing so. And sometimes that deep breath just moves in, that little nervous system reset, that deep breath, that yawn. And then once you've held an area, you might move around a little bit more towards the heel or under the toes. You can also come onto the side of the foot. I find for me, kind of in the arch. there's usually a lot of holding there. So find a couple different spots and hold them. So we're going to find a second spot here now. And again, let your body guide you. So if you're in the same spot and you want to hold longer, that's okay. Okay, I'm just here to guide, and you are going to notice where you need to be. And then you might spend a little more time here when you're doing this on your own. Once you kind of know what to do, you can do this a few times a week. You can do this daily. And it doesn't have to be the entire body, or you can just do certain areas as well. So I'm going to move to the other foot. If you're ready, then you can join me. So here, I'm just going to do the same thing. So placing my foot on the ball, and we're going to roll around. Find that spot, and then you're going to hold, and you're going to breathe. You're going to notice, connect with the body. And a tennis ball is just as effective. Any sort of ball that you have, you could try with. Try out some different options and see what you like. And once you've held that pressure for a little bit, maybe looking for a new spot. Ideally, we're holding these points for 2 to 3 minutes. However, again, if it becomes too much, if there's a spot that's really tender and painful, then maybe you're beginning to hold it for 30 seconds. Maybe you're just working around that area because it's going to release that area as well. It doesn't need to be extremely painful. There might be some discomfort though. We can handle discomfort. We can move through discomfort. You could also do this seated in a chair or laying down with your foot on the ball. I like to stand because then I have pressure. I can kind of on my side, I guess. But find what works for you. And then maybe you found a couple spots to hold. Maybe you've been holding the same one. We're just going to come off of the ball. And let's just bring our feet onto the mat and maybe just begin to step side to side. Notice if the feet want to rotate at all. Sometimes we want to come up on our toes and back down to the heels. Maybe a little bit of a bounce feels good. I like to start with the feet as well because it's a very grounding area in our body. So when we bring our awareness to our feet, all of those energy centers, we just find a sense of safety and sense of grounding, and we pull that sense of safety into our nervous system. All right. Maybe shaking out the legs a little bit. If you need any other shakes, please feel free to find that. And then we are going to make our way down to the mat. So we are going to work with the ball again. Now, you can do your calves, you can do shins, you can use a roller. Because we worked the feet, I'm going to skip the calves and the thighs, and we're going to move up into the hips because it's another really important area I find. But again, please, you can use a roller for any area on the legs as well to help with any release or any areas you have there. So we're going to start on our backs, and we're going to take the ball and we're going to place it under the left glute. So we're going to place it under that left glute, and you're going to release down onto it. And then you're going to move your body around here, and you're going to look for any of those tender areas. Once you find it, I know I found mine, or one of them, I'm going to hold here. You can play with lengthening that leg if you'd like, or you can keep it bent. Once you find that spot, maybe closing the eyes if it's comfortable. Just tuning into the body. And noticing if you can release down over the ball, melt down over the ball. Allow that breath to flow. Allowing whatever moves in to be. Noticing if you can relax the muscles in the neck and shoulders. And then maybe you're moving when you're ready again to notice if there's any other areas. Sometimes if we kind of find a spot, you can play with that leg. So again, we can open this left leg over to the left. Come over a little bit more onto the left side, and you might notice some tender areas there. Releasing the body, melting over the ball, releasing the shoulders, and breathing. These tender areas will become less tender the more you do this. And you'll notice a big difference in nervous system regulation, migraines, pain, tension in the body. And then if you're ready, maybe you're moving that ball up towards the hip a little more. And just kind of, again, working with this left hip, noticing if there's any areas, and then holding, finding that leg position that might support you. If there's a lot of discomfort, exhaling with a sound can help. That audible sigh. Stimulating that vagus nerve, sending those safety signals. And then from here, we're going to lift and release the ball. And just take a moment here to just notice the left and right side. And then we'll do that right side. So we're going to place the ball under that right glute, maybe in that meaty part of the glute, or again, wherever you feel tension, pressure, a little bit of discomfort. And then you're going to find that spot, you're going to hold, you're going to tune into the body and breathe. You're going to release around the ball. Over time, you might notice that everything kind of releases and melts down around the ball. Sometimes we need to intentionally release the shoulders and the neck. One side might have a lot more tension than the other, so if you're not finding much tension on this side, you can always move back and work with the other side as well. Or you can move up to that hip at any time. I'm just going to play with this right leg a little bit and open it up and move the ball around a little bit. And find another spot here to hold. Sometimes memories come in, sometimes thoughts or emotions might pop up, just allowing whatever comes in to just be here. We don't need to stop and analyze it, we can just notice. And if you haven't already, just moving up closer towards that right hip. Moving around. Again, I like to, sometimes I'll come over towards that right, kind of on my right side a little bit. Find that spot, that breath, and hold. Melt down as much as you can. And then we'll release the ball from that right hip. And we'll find a little bit of movement here. Maybe some windshield wipers feel nice. Just dropping the knees back and forth from left to right. And let's bring those knees back to center and come into a hip stretch. So we'll bring the right ankle over that left knee. And then we're going to lift the left sole up. Maybe grab behind the left thigh. Pull that left thigh in. Maybe you're rocking a little bit from left to right or slowly moving, finding an area that feels good to hold and breathe. If it's difficult to lift this left knee up, that's okay. It can remain on the mat. Maybe you're just pushing that right knee open, You can also always use a strap or a belt around that left thigh to pull it in. And then let's release and uncross, and we'll do that other side. Left ankle over the right knee. Find your variation. Maybe you're lifting and grabbing behind the leg, and breathe. If you slowly move over to the right or the left, you're going to notice different areas being opened and stretched. And then releasing the legs down. We're going to do one more. We're going to use that block or either a pillow here. So we're going to use the block. We're going to lift the hips. You can either slide the block or the pillow. You could also use the bolster to slide under. We're just lifting the hips a little, and you're placing it at your sacrum, base of your spine, and just feeling some support here. Opening the front side of the hips here now, working with that psoas. We're going to lengthen the legs if that's possible. Lengthening the legs, rounding over that block. Our psoas muscle runs from our leg up through the hip and up into the diaphragm. So it can even affect our breathing when this muscle is tight. When it's rigid, it's connected to that fight-flight response. So when we spend a lot of time, again, in that fight-flight, this muscle is always ready to move, to run, to fight. So we want to stretch it, move it, and it can be a little trickier to get into that muscle. So a little different from the fascia, but still working with the nervous system, particularly here. You could also do one leg at a time here if 2 is too much. You can pick the length or the height, I should say, of the block. Maybe you're on the lower level. Maybe a pillow is folded. So many options. And then we'll slide those soles back up. And we'll release that block, bring the hips back down. And then from here, we're going to be rolling on to our stomach. So we're going to move on to our stomach here. Maybe first off, just place your hands under your forehead. Bring that forehead down. Maybe just shake out those hips for a moment. And then from here, we're going to grab that ball once again. And we're going to take the ball and we're going to place it right under this right hip. So kind of in that little indent area, you kind of have your hip bone there. You're going to kind of come right beside it. And then you're going to lay on that ball. Here, you're going to find again that movement. Find an area where you can feel that tension, that tight, that holding. And then you're going to release down over the ball and you're going to hold. Maybe you're coming down to the hands. Maybe you're using a pillow. Breathe. Release the body. You might be searching for another spot if there is one in that right hip. I'm content here, so I'm just going to stay and breathe a little bit longer. And then when you feel ready, you can remove the ball, and we're going to do that on the other side. So we're going to lift the left hip up, and we'll put it in that indent. That left hip, find that area of tension, holding, discomfort, maybe a little. And you're going to hold, relax the body, and breathe. Noticing what comes up, any sensations, any emotions that might move through. Remembering that sustained pressure is what helps to release the fascia. So if you want to move now and find a different spot, you're welcome to. Maybe you're holding the same spot. Again, we want maybe 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not sure how close I'm getting to that, but in your own practice, just noticing if you can hold for that time frame or close to it. Staying with the body and the breath. And then when you're ready, we're going to come on up and we're going to release that ball. We're going to come back into a child's pose. So just putting your hands beside either side of the chest and bringing those hips up and back towards the heels. Maybe the forehead comes down to the mat. Knees can be together or they can be separated on the mat if you'd like in a wide-legged child's pose. Take a few breaths here. Feeling the backside of the body open and expand on those inhales, releasing, letting go on those exhales. And then let's come on back to that tabletop. Hands can come under shoulders, knees under hips, and we're going to do a few cat-cows. As you inhale, belly comes down, crown and tailbone up. And as you exhale, round that spine up like a rainbow, tuck the head and the tailbone. Inhale, belly down. And exhale, rounding. And I want you to notice any other motion that wants to come in, maybe a little bit of a rock back and forth as you move through your cat-cow. And then coming back to center, I just want to find a little bit of mobility with this hip. So with our right hip, we're just going to draw some circles with that right knee, I should say. So drawing some circles one way with the right knee. And then we're going to go the opposite way. And then that knee can come down, and we're going to do that left knee, draw those circles. And then draw those circles the other way. Noticing if you can slow it down, Slowing down things really helps to regulate the nervous system. So anytime you can slow down your motions, it's sending safety. Let's bring that knee back down. Now here, I want to bring the knees back a little bit, and we're going to bring the hips down towards the mat and just come into a little bit of maybe a cobra or a baby cobra. And then let's bring the chest all the way down to the mat. Bring the hands under the forehead one more time here and just shake out those hips. And then from here, we're going to grab the ball again, and we're going to work with the chest and even kind of into the armpits. Now, you can do this laying down, so we're going to take the ball and you can kind of place it that right side of the chest, and again, you're going to kind of roll around. Notice where you feel any pressure. You could also do this standing against a wall if that feels more supportive for you. Sometimes you can get in a little more into the kind of the armpit area. And so again, whether you decide to do this on the ground or whether you decide to use the wall, finding an area of tension, tightness, pressure, and just breathing through it, maybe some discomfort. Noticing any sensations that might be radiating out from this area. Find that breath, allow it to flow. Maybe a nice deep breath moves in. And then maybe you're moving around and finding a different area. Maybe you're holding the same one. And if there isn't another area, you can always move on to that left side, the opposite side, whenever you're ready. And then if you haven't already, moving that ball over to the left side of the chest. Again, whether you're laying down, whether you're standing and up against a wall. Find an area. You can roll it around. Notice if it's closer to the armpit. Hold and breathe. Allow your body to melt over it, release, surrender. Find a new spot if you'd like, or maybe you're working with the same one, holding, breathing, noticing what comes up in the body. Noticing if there's any tension or holding, release the tension, surrender. And then when you're ready, we'll release that ball. And we're gonna flip over onto our backs again. So we're gonna come on down. We're gonna use the ball on our upper shoulders here now. Now you can do the back as well if that's where you find it, but I'm gonna come into my left shoulder blade. So you can place the ball there. And then again, you're gonna roll around, notice where there's tension. You're gonna find that spot and you're gonna hold. I can usually find a lot of spots here. So usually I just work with one or two. I don't overdo it. We don't want to be in pain after. For me, if I do too much, I can trigger a headache or a migraine. So just being careful and yeah, working with a couple in each area and then moving on. You can also play with the arm positioning. You can play with movement with the arm. You can wrap it around the body. Slowing down, noticing that breath. And noticing any emotions, any sensations that might move through. And if any emotions do move through, making sure that you are allowing that release. So if anger moves through, your fists might want to tense. Tensing those fists, following that intuition, that guidance the body is giving you in order to release. Maybe you're slowly releasing those fists. Finding that motion. If it's anger, I find that comes up for me, my fists always tend to clench. And so I just play with that motion a little bit, slowing it down, opening and closing my hands. The breath. Using that breath. You're welcome to move on to a different spot, maybe moving up the shoulder blade or around. Holding, breathing, noticing what comes up. If sadness comes up, just noticing that sadness, allowing it to be here. Tears might come, they might not. Following those sensations throughout the body. We don't even need to label them necessarily. These are all cues that your nervous system is just releasing a little here and there. The more you you do this, the more you find stillness, the more your nervous system is going to regulate and find that safety to release. And play with the positioning of your head. And then from here, we're going to release this left side, and we are going to move on to the right side. So we're going to place that ball under that right shoulder blade. Kind of shift around, notice where you'd like to hold. Maybe you're playing with the positioning of that right arm. Maybe you're finding a little bit of motion as you hold with that right arm. Releasing any muscles trying to tense. Notice those sensations, that breath. And if you're ready, maybe you're kind of tweaking that area, finding a different spot, moving up towards the shoulder or down if you'd like. Maybe you're staying in the same spot. Holding that pressure. Playing with any movement if you'd like with that arm or that head. And then when you're ready, there's no rush. We'll release the ball and just come onto the mat. Notice if your arms want to float up. Maybe you want to stretch a little bit. Maybe the arms want to find a little bit of motion back and forth or up and down alongside the ears. And then before we move up into the neck, we're going to come into a heart opener here. So you can grab your bolster or your pillow and you're going to lay it lengthwise on the mat. And then back onto it. So you could fold the pillow in half to make it a little bit bulkier. And you're just gonna lay back. And so we're just working to open the chest now, open the heart. And just taking a moment here to connect with this heart center. Bring your awareness into this heart space, center of the chest, and just notice if anything comes up, any sensations, emotions. This is our center for love, compassion, gratitude. Maybe you can begin to feel that energy center ignite and spread through the body, that love. Maybe it's an emerald green light. Noticing if gratitude moves in. What are you grateful for in this moment? People, places, memories. What comes up for you as we're here in the heart space? And if gratitude is not accessible, that's okay too. Just noticing what's here. And then maybe the soles come up to the mat if they're not already. And just noticing how you'd like to move a little. Sometimes I just like to roll off of the bolster and just come onto my side body for a moment in the fetal position. Rounding the back a little, bringing the knees towards the chest. And then from here, we're going to make our way back onto our back, and we're going to grab that ball and bring it with us. And we're going to work with the neck here. So we can bring the ball to kind of the left side. We can move under kind of where the skull, the base of the skull. We're going to place the ball there. And just noticing where there's a little bit of a tender space and holding. You might need the hand to kind of hold there for support. Sometimes the hand comes underneath for a little bit more pressure. Find that breath. Allow that release. If you're not finding much tension up near the base of the skull, you can always move the ball down. And you can even place the hand under the ball. And then hold that way. Down the neck a little. Allowing that breath to flow. Noticing any sensations that move through. And then you're welcome to stay where you are. Maybe you're bringing the ball over to the left side of the neck. So almost like it's up under that jaw, kind of in that little indent. Notice if there's any around here in this area. And again, you're just putting pressure here with the hand and the ball. You could, and this is an option, it might be a little intense, but you could also bring the ball onto the block and find that spot and then hold here. There's no right or wrong way, just finding those areas, holding and breathing, noticing what comes up in the body, and honoring that. And again, you can continue holding wherever you are, but if you'd like to start to make your way kind of towards the front side of the neck, getting into that sternocleidomastoid muscle, so that really large muscle that runs up the front. Now, if you can find those pressure points, holding, it's going to run up and it kind of connects to your jaw. Again, you could also, if the block isn't comfortable, you could do this by just bringing the ball up the front side of the neck. And sometimes I like to just roll it up, noticing any tension, any little knots I always find in this area. And then hold there and breathe. When you find those little knots, when you find that tension. You could also turn your head to either side, maybe to the right. Maybe you're rolling around looking for another spot. Maybe you're in the same spot. You're welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. If you're ready to release, we're going to move on to that other side. So we're going to bring the ball up to that base of the skull on the right side. Hand might be underneath the ball for a little more pressure, or maybe that's not necessary. You could also use the block here too. You could bring the block under and then place the ball there. You can also get balls where they're connected, or you could put the two tennis balls in a sock and tie it and get both of these points at the same time. Wherever you are, find that spot. Maybe it's not right at the base of the skull. Maybe it's down the neck a little. And breathe. notice what comes up, connect with the body. Maybe it's a tingling, maybe there's a heat or a wave moving through. Just noticing those sensations. We tend to ignore these messages, these signals, so just sitting with them today. Maybe you're moving over towards the right side, closer to the jaw. You might be using a block, you might not be. It might just be your hand moving the ball around. Maybe you're supporting the head a little with the hand. And whenever you're ready, maybe you're moving to the front side of the neck here. That sternocleidomastoid, which can cause some issues on its own. Maybe you're just rolling the ball around, that thick muscle running up the right side of the neck or throat, connecting into the jaw or around the jaw. Maybe you're finding that position on the block again, using the block to find that muscle and hold. Connecting with the body, breathing, noticing the sensations that move through, if any. And then when you're ready, we can release the ball, release the block. And from here, we're going to move up into a seated position. And just find a little bit of movement and stretching for the neck, for the shoulders here. Maybe the shoulders, want to take a couple rolls, maybe inhaling the shoulders up And then exhaling, releasing them back and down. Maybe the head wants to just move here, so noticing if you want to look around your space, orienting back into the room. We've spent a lot of time in the body, noticing your surroundings, colors, shapes. Maybe your gaze lands on something particular. Maybe your ear wants to drop down to one shoulder. And then maybe back to the other, left ear to left shoulder, the opposite. Maybe just taking a moment and moving back and forth again, bringing some mobility in here after that static pressure, that fascia work. Turning the head as you need to, maybe looking up or finding those rolls with the neck and the head. You'll find as you continue with this fascia work that it does loosen and it does get a little bit easier in the beginning, or when you're going through a stressful time. There can be a lot of tension and a lot of holding and tightness. So be gentle with yourself. If you can, find little bits every day, find little ways to kind of work the ball in, to find that breath, to slow down in your daily lives, to send those safety signals to the nervous system so that it's able to release whatever it needs to, so we can live regulated, beautiful, joyful lives. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found that helpful. Please let me know in the comments if you liked that, if you'd like to see more of that, or any other suggestions you might have. Thank you.